Hey everyone, today we're going to dig into a really powerful American idea, the pull of the countryside. It's this fantasy so many of us have, but as we're about to see, it's a story that was shaped by some pretty surprising history, and it's now facing a future that nobody saw coming. It all starts with a feeling, right? A feeling that this person from a survey just nailed. Whether you're just planning a weekend trip or you're dreaming about packing it all up and moving, so many of us have this deep down desire to get out of the city and find that serenity of simple life. It's this ache for something that we just feel like the city can't give us. And it turns out there's some real psychology behind this feeling. City life, for a lot of people, means what scientists call overload. It's just a constant flood of noise, people, and information that jacks up our stress levels and can wear down our relationships. But rural life, it often comes with what they call protective factors. Things like being out in nature more, having stronger social circles, and a real sense of community. Okay, so what is it that people are really looking for when they dream about the country? What are the actual building blocks of this rural ideal we have in our heads? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is something called social capital. And no, it's not about money. It's about the incredible value we get from our relationships. It's knowing you can trust your neighbors, having people you can count on. It's basically the social glue that holds a community together. And a lot of people feel it's just easier to find that in a rural place. And that idea of connection, it leads us to another key concept, socio-emotional wealth. This is all the good stuff that money can't buy. It's that feeling of pride and belonging you get from being part of something local and shared. Like the attachment people feel to the town's farmer's market or a family farm that's been there forever. That feeling, that's socio-emotional wealth. So you might be wondering, how does all this great connection actually happen? Well, the system that helps build it has a name, civic agriculture. Look, this is the exact opposite of giant industrial factory farming. We're talking about things like community-supported agriculture, CSAs, or farmers markets, places where you buy directly from the person who grew your food. It's a whole system built on relationships, not just profits. And this is where it all clicks together, you see? Civic agriculture is the engine. When that engine is running, it builds up social capital, all those strong community bonds. And that, in turn, creates socio-emotional wealth, that deep personal sense of belonging. This is the formula for the rural ideal that pulls so many people in. But here's the big question we have to ask. Was any of this an accident? Did these tight-knit communities just spring up on their own? Or was the very foundation of this rural landscape we love actually part of a deliberate, strategic plan? And that leads us straight to the blueprint. To really get what's going on with rural America, we've got to rewind the clock to the 19th century and the one policy that literally drew the map, the Homestead Act. Now, the Homestead Act wasn't just this one-and-done thing. Nope. It was a living policy that kept changing for over 70 years. It kicked off in 1862, right in the middle of the Civil War, offering up 160 acres. But the government kept tweaking it, making plots bigger for tougher farmland, even bigger for ranching, always pushing people further out until the whole thing basically wrapped up in 1934. The story we all kind of grew up with, the popular myth, is pretty romantic, right? It's this Jeffersonian dream of a nation of small, independent farmers. The government was just handing out free land to help regular folks get a start and build a better country. But that's really not the full picture. The reality, it was a lot less about farming and a lot more about cold, hard strategy. It was frankly pretty ruthless. The real goal, as this quote says, was to basically skip the normal, slow process of settlement. The idea was to drop a massive number of people into a territory all at once to take control. It was a demographic land grab. So let's be super clear here. This whole thing wasn't primarily about giving folks a farm. It was about claiming territory. The US government used settlers like a tool. They wanted to shut down claims from Mexico or the Confederacy, but the biggest goal was to overwhelm and erase Native American land claims with sheer numbers. A flood of settlers was way cheaper and more permanent than sending in the army. And if you want proof, just look at this map. It tells the whole story. This is a government map from 1912 showing where settlers could get those bigger homesteads in Montana. That's the dark shaded area. Well, it turns out that 84% of that land was territory taken from native tribes in legally shaky ways. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a strategy. So this lightning-fast, policy-driven settlement created the rural America we think we know. But what happens when 100 years go by
and the original reasons for that push are long gone.
All right, to get what happened next, there's one key term you gotta know: natural decrease. It sounds a little grim, but it's a simple idea. It's what happens in a place when, over a year, there are more deaths than there are births.
And for rural America, this became the story, the dominant story. Every single year since 2017, rural America as a whole has had more deaths than births. I mean, just in the last 4 years, that led to a net loss of more than 500,000 people. 51%. Think about that for a second. More than half of all non-metro counties in the entire country actually lost people between 2020 and 2024. So even while we hear about a rural boom, for most individual rural places, the reality has been decline. And this isn't happening everywhere equally. No, it's hitting specific places really hard. Places like the Mississippi Delta, Appalachia, and right across the Great Plains, the very heartland that the Homestead Act populated. For decades, this was the narrative: a slow, steady drain of people. For a long time, that story of decline seemed set in stone. But then, just recently, something totally unexpected happened. The trend didn't just slow down, it completely flipped on its head. Okay, get ready for a number that just doesn't seem to make sense at first. While rural America was losing over 500,000 people to natural decrease, it gained nearly 1 million people from migration in that same 4-year period. So many people moved in that it completely wiped out the decline and then some. So who are all these new people? Where are they coming from? This chart gives us the breakdown. Most of them, about 69%, are Americans moving from cities and suburbs. But what's really interesting is that almost a third of the growth is from international migration, which is completely changing the culture of these small towns. And this is where everything we've talked about snaps into focus. It brings us right back to where we started. In a way, we are seeing a new wave of settlers. They're not being pushed by a government policy, but they are absolutely being pulled by that same powerful feeling we talked about at the beginning. They are looking for community, for affordability, for that socio-emotional wealth that the rural ideal has always promised. So that leaves us with this final, fascinating question. This new wave of people is reshaping a landscape that was itself artificially created by a government strategy over a century ago. So are we seeing a return to some kind of idealized past? Or are these new people, on top of this incredibly complicated history, creating a version of rural America that we have never, ever seen before?